Good morning and welcome to our conversation with our king. He is the Director of Enterprise Services and Technologies at SpiderCloud Wireless. This conversation is part of a report on NFV and the ecosystem behind it. Today we will be talking about the impact of NFV on the enterprise small cell market. Art, well, thanks first of all for talking to us today.
You're welcome, Monica. This is a very interesting topic that has a lot of legs right now in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. And so why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what is that you're doing in the enterprise small cell market, especially with regards to the NFV?
Sure. So SpiderCloud builds a platform for delivering small cell services indoors to buildings anywhere from 25,000 square feet to 1.5 million square feet. We can support up to 100 small cell radios and 10,000 subscribers on that infrastructure. So it's really designed for medium to large office buildings. And as part of the construction of the system, our engineers incorporated an Intel Xeon processor with 64-bit technology, hypervisors, that type of thing, in order to provide a hosting platform out at the edge of the architecture that is still controlled by the telecom, and can be used like opportunistically for various both operations processes and also enterprise service delivery type applications.
Yeah, and here we're talking about, just to be clear, it's a mobile operator that provides the small cell service to the enterprise.
Yes, absolutely. So, with our architecture, it is sold and delivered. It's sold to the mobile operator and they deliver it on the premise. But for the first time, they've got a processor out at the edge of the architecture that's part of another network element. So you don't have to deploy something new or different to have a kind of an edge cloud service out at the enterprise premise. You actually have it delivered internally as part of another network element. So it really kind of changes the dynamic around number of elements to manage and maintain, and also just the overall OpEx cost for the operator to have that processor out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So oftentimes when you think about virtualization, you think about having everything in the big data center centralized, but your approach is very interesting because you are trying to virtualize, but also move to the edge some of the functions that are logically local. And so it's a little bit of a different take. And can you explain it to us? What's your approach?
Sure. So there's a class of applications that within the operator community should not be decomposed and should definitely still reside in the core. But there's also things that either aren't possible today, such as analytics at the edge, or enterprise applications that kind of merge the plumbing together. And I'll kind of touch on both of those. So from an analytics perspective, you've got a lot of data traffic and visibility at the core, at the GGSN, to see statistics for an overall area. But getting out to the enterprise edge and having intelligence and be able to profile and understand your traffic analytics at the edge, you have to have instrumentation at the edge, or you have to have extremely large backhaul to feed a lot of instrumentation back to the core. So we're having conversations with a number of analytics providers to build essentially an extension of their probe packages and be able to really look at the traffic in the network itself and be able to reduce it down and provide summary information and reporting back to the core. So the unique thing about our architecture is that it has visibility to the mobile core, it can point towards the enterprise DMZ. It can see the internet, and it can see both the LTE and the 3G RAN that we deliver into the enterprise. So you have a kind of a special place where at the API level, you can see all the events on the SpiderCloud platform for all the mobility events, handovers inside the architecture, but you can also see the signaling and data planes for the actual RANs. So it provides a unique level of instrumentation that heretofore hasn't really been available.
Yeah, it's like having a private network, but leveraging all the advantages of the public network. So you have the mix of the two. So
right. So imagine that the operator wants to have analytics about how the enterprise is consuming infrastructure, but also then be able to resell a portal back to the enterprise saying, here's your view into how all your customers in the building are consuming infrastructure.
mm-hmm.
And this is the mix of enterprise devices and guest devices, essentially the telco subscribers that roam into that building but aren't members of the enterprise, and just have a view into the infrastructure that hasn't existed for enterprise network managers before.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's very valuable. Now let's talk about the applications. What kind of applications do you think it makes sense to have virtualized at the enterprise side?
On the enterprise side, we have an advisory council, enterprise advocacy council that that kind of keep us honest and have advised us over the years. And one of the key things they're looking for is blanket coverage and capacity everywhere, as kind of a foundational step to divesting of a lot of communications infrastructure inside the enterprise. And they're looking for ways to merge the enterprise communication technology with the mobile operator and the mobile device, such that they don't need to install any additional software to have enterprise unified communications and that kind of thing. As a former IT strategist for a multinational, my barriers to success were the fact that where I needed to do system integration was in the plumbing of the operator. Mm-hmm. And so it's not only is it a valuable control point, but it's something that can be monetized because only the operator can see those kind of interchange points between the enterprise and the mobile operator. So when you talk about PBX, the hardest thing you can do in the enterprise is get people to change behavior. The second hardest thing you have to do is potentially distribute software. Those are two huge things, and especially with mobile, because operating systems are released. And I knew that 1 minute after midnight, somewhere in the world, one of my 19,000 people would be installing the newest, latest, greatest release of iOS. And you can't have any operating system dependencies, otherwise you're going to have a rolling outage as everyone upgrades around the world, with new software. So we were looking for a way to take our voice infrastructure, and when you dial with a short phone number, have the essentially the operator's plumbing understand that was an enterprise phone number being hit from the dialer or being used from the native contact list on the phone, and just route it up a SIP pipe directly into the enterprise PBX. So you have the UC integration that people are seeking and talking about on mobile, but you do it without any software or changing people's behaviors. And and I had an OpEx of $15 a month for a telephone, a desk phone. And when my incumbent mobile operator came in and said, "I'll sell you this for $8 a month," I said, A, I'll give you 6,000 lines, and B, when are you going to fix my coverage problem so I can actually, uptake on the service?
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of challenges there. So you need to present a very simple transition path, and in terms of functionality and in terms of everything, right?
Oh, without a doubt. But the brilliance of mobile operators, when I come to this side of the table after my IT experience, what do I know about mobile operators that gives me faith that this will happen in the future? Number one, there's a lot of templated services that every enterprise has that don't have a lot of variance that could be easily templated by a mobile operator. Number two, operators scale furiously. I mean, my God, I thought I was big and bad with 39,000 end users, and I, the operators that I'm dealing with now have 200 million, 400 million users. So the scale that the operators think at and build for far exceeds what the enterprises have. And I think that there's cost economics there, and there's also operations economics that just absolutely, unless you're an enterprise that must be doing some of these things in-house, there's an inevitability of moving a lot of this stuff as a simple monthly OpEx expense and exit the business. My leadership in the IT realm was very much focused on what is competitive advantage for us that we should do in-house and outsource everything. So we basically said we're not going to invest any of our precious staff resources operationally on doing things that don't have competitive advantage to delivering product to our customers. And we retained architecture in-house, and I was one of the 9 architects that steered the global machine, but operations was completely outsourced because our leadership said it doesn't make a difference to our business how well this is run or who runs it. It's more how well it's run and is there someone responsive to fix it when it breaks.
Mm-hmm. So basically, if the mobile operators have a compelling proposition, the enterprise is ready to go. Now the question is that for the mobile operators, they need to develop some of these services, and that's where NFV comes in, because it enables them to scale even better. So you say, well, obviously they're already into the scaling business, but they still have a little bit of trouble reaching, especially the smaller enterprise, because unless you can scale, it's kind of difficult. And I guess that the NFV will give them the opportunity to do that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To be real honest, we're very early in the journey, all of us together. And, it's going to be a joint learning experience by the industry, both, on the telecom side and the vendor side to accomplish a lot of these things.
Yeah. And I actually talking about that, what is it you're learning from your end, and what is it you're hearing from the operators as you move on, or the enterprise, as a matter of fact?
The enterprises are ready. They're very much want coverage and capacity, and we believe that it's a trust building exercise where get awesome coverage and capacity where the phones work everywhere, deep in the infrastructure or deep in the office buildings, such that you can go follow on later with a service, and knowing that it'll work everywhere, the enterprise IT teams are a little bit more likely to uptake on it. I was very reluctant to prototype awesome services because I couldn't take them into production because of the operations expense of, when I move people into an area with no cellular coverage, having to reprovision them with old school technology, it would have cost a lot operationally, but it would have also disappointed our customers. Yeah. And on the operator side, it's it's the business case work, and it's it's a lot of folks on the operations side driving the maturation process of APIs, software, orchestration, a lot of those pieces. So it's only just started.
Yeah, well, and I guess it's going to be a gradual path in terms of what functions you will virtualize first as you move on. So maybe just to give us a little bit more sort of a concrete example of what is it, how does it work? So for a mobile operator, what is it they need to add? How do they do it today? And then maybe we can talk about what happens in the longer term.
Okay, so let's talk about PBX integration now, and I'll refer to a specific vendor, Tango Networks. They have a technology that bolts to the side of the switching infrastructure in the core, and really enables the enterprise phone number to follow the mobile and be cleanly integrated together. The present integration process, of course, is a separate MPLS line from the operator's data center to the enterprise, because there's no way to deliver the service otherwise. There has to be an integration point between the operator and the enterprise. And the natural thing to do with NFV at the edge is a virtual machine that connects to the enterprise DMZ and connects backwards to the Tango Networks point in the core, and provides that kind of integration bridge between the mobile operator and the enterprise, and leverages the incumbent backhaul that the operators put in. And from an economics perspective, it takes the cost out of the equation of the separate backhaul charge, from the mobile core to the enterprise. And the other thing is the operators pay substantially less for bandwidth per month for a data circuit for backhaul compared to what an enterprise has to pay for a data circuit, just because of the economics of their buying power.
Yeah. So that there is a lot of scope for cost savings, improved efficiencies here. Now, there is you also have a partnership with Intel, I understand, that allows you to offer all this new functionality in a very compact form factor, right?
Yes, in our architecture, there's a services module that's part of our services node. So when you look at our architecture, we have a aggregation kind of point that controls the whole cloud of radios called the services node. So we have radio nodes distributed throughout the building on the enterprise Ethernet, and then in the core, there's in the telecom core of the enterprise, there's a services node that's racked up. It's very similar to like an Aruba architecture or a Cisco airspace architecture from a Wi-Fi perspective, with a controller box and a bunch of distributed radios. And then our services node has a one backhaul link, one giant IPsec tunnel to the mobile core. So within that services node, there's a Intel 64-bit what is it, Xeon Quick Assist 120 gig processor that's sitting there waiting for services to be built upon it, and it has API access to signaling, events, media, and also to any of the Ethernet ports to provision and connect to the outside world. So it's a very unique approach, and it's the first of many. We have a partnership with Intel because there's a lot of interest in not only just NFV, but also NFV and small cells has been a really rough proposition in the past because the economics didn't pencil out. The early proof of concept showed that a small cell with a processor could do very interesting things around caching and limit backhaul and improve quality of experience and that type of thing. But the battle on the economic side was one processor per small cell caused the business case to fail, because there was a technical case for it and there was some interesting outcomes, but with our services now, what we're bringing into the equation is the processor in the services is amortized across anywhere from 50 to 100 radios. So the business case actually works and it makes sense compared to the kind of the prior generation of small cell technology.
Yeah, and that's absolutely crucial. Now, if we were to look at the future plans, how is this going to evolve both in terms of product functionality? How do you see it going?
It appears that the evolution will be driven by the operators and some portfolio software vendors on their side, and really, we see that partnerships forming with the portfolio vendors of an operator and ourselves to selectively deploy, NFV apps to the edge where the business and operations cases line up. And it's going to be very much the software portfolio vendors for NFV that are going to be the drivers behind it. And those kind of requirements and the things they bring to the table very early in this process will also influence our evolution and our direction. So, we're a processor at the edge. We are not a gigantic data center processor, but there's things that can be decomposed, cloud helper apps. So if you have a cloud app that would work a little bit better by having some intelligence in the edge and having a piece of it decomposed so the quality of experience for the subscriber is just that much better, we have a way to do it with them.
Yeah. And now talking about this, as you said, it's going to be a gradual expansion of the virtualization process. So what they can do today, operators, they can use your solution but they're not dependent on having all the pieces of NFV there, so they don't need orchestration in case they're planning to have that on the second stage, right?
Exactly. They can deploy and leave the processor dormant, and as they're ready, partner with us to enable it and bring it up and bring it online and that kind of thing. And because of how operators tend to work and package in the labs and think things through and squeeze out all the bugs long before launch, I don't believe there'll be any embarrassments in front of customers because things tend to get all worked out in the labs before they ever hit the real world.
Yeah. Now, we talked about enterprise so far, but what about public venues and then other environments where there is a mix of public and enterprise access? Is this a similar model we're going to work there as well?
Yeah, I think so. Within the venues, the more interesting things for venues are things like caching, to remove load from the backhaul, and things around location-based services and that type of thing. So that the mix of services will be a little bit different for venues, but we see that there's going to be plenty of opportunity in a lot of indoor venues and malls, transport stations, that type of thing, to provide interesting services.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in closing, what do you see happening in the industry over the next 5 years, especially with relationship with small cells and virtualization?
We see much more RAN technology and small cells getting processors at the edge, and we see kind of like the small cell industry. The small cell industry, there's kind of 50 key operators at a global level that have been driving small cells and driving early adoption, and probably that same footprint of early adopter operators will drive the NFV at the edge and develop a lot of the cases, lessons, and information so that other operators at a global level can gradually follow on and do it with a lot less risk, because they're followers in the path versus breaking the trail for the first people down the path.
Yeah. So I think it will be quite a few interesting years. It's going to be a lot of learning, but a lot of opportunities as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think collectively the best thing that all of us can do that are public facing towards the operator community is case studies and sharing and helping everyone understand where did we succeed, where did we face plant, and how do we recover from the face plant, because the face plants are always kind of a transient thing, and you learn a lot of lessons in those processes, and that's kind of the most valuable thing, is a lot of open communication with the industry.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. It's going to be crucial. Well, Art, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. It was inspiring as usual.
Well, Monica, thanks for the invite, and we'll see you on YouTube.
Absolutely. This conversation is part of the NFV report that is available on our website at www senzafiliconsulting.com. And thank you all for listening.